Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Average fat cats with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride with
Extended Clip.
Welcome to Extended Clip. It is episode 273, and I am one of your hosts, Eddie Averill.
I'm Malcolm Baum.
I'm JT White.
And today, everybody's favorite recurring mini-series, the Extended Clip Executive Decision returns. See, I'm going a little bit in my YouTuber voice.
Good.
Yeah.
We need that pep in our step.
Yeah, we need high energy.
Look alive.
I mean, like, I think it works. Like, it's just bad content, though. That's the thing. Like, I like making good content. But that clickbait vlog that I work for, you know, the videos I'm in make, 9,000 views in the first couple days. And it's like, holy shit, I'm just, I'm a thumbnail man. I'm a talking head thumbnail man. If only Extended Clip podcasts made 9,000 views in the first hour. But, then I would have to be titling the episodes, Denis Villeneuve fans have lost their minds.
The worm did what in Dune? What?
Huge update regarding the worm in Dune.
The worm is questionable to appear in Dune 2. It will, during the release date, he'll decide whether he'll be in the movie or not.
You see the thumbnail is like the worm, and then in a little bubble it's Timothée Chalamet, and the title is like, was the worm ducking Paul? The thing is, that does exist. Like, clickbait vlogger, YouTuber stuff, like for movies, absolutely.
Those guys, they get huge.
Yeah, no, that's who we're competing with when we do reviews of like the new Christopher Nolan movie or something like that. That is straight up our competition. So maybe next time we do like one of the kind of bro auteurs that we still kind of take a bit seriously, we should frame the episode like that on YouTube, do a real full shot, reverse shot, like debate, like those guys who always pop up on the timeline arguing about stupid shit.
Yeah,
that's a whole different world that we don't know anything about, too.
Yeah.
Like the YouTube movie review scene, you know what I mean? That's kind of like uncharted, scary waters. I don't know what's going on over there. I don't
just
know what
put
they're
out the
thinking.
same podcast that's 8 minutes long twice, and once the title is Denis Villeneuve, the most overrated, and then the second one is Denis Villeneuve is next level. And it's the same podcast.
That's a good move.
They call it A/B marketing.
Really? What does that stand for? A to
Well,
B?
it's like it's A/B testing rather.
Okay.
Yeah, you're putting two things out that are the same thing.
Oh, A and B.
A and
Okay.
B.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
you're seeing which one's better. Yeah, I do that with the podcast sometimes. I'll put up a link through Spotify and I'll be like, oh, this is the new podcast, and I'll do it on like Apple Music. See which one more people respond to. That's a little peek behind the curtain.
Don't give
for
away
you.
all your secrets.
Yeah.
Look, that's the thing. That should be the new promise, is every time we do one of these Extended Clip Executive Decision episodes, you get one secret of the show. The secret is sometimes I do a little A/B testing.
A financial, like, success-based secret, you know what I mean? Like, nothing salacious or anything like that,
So you might be wondering, what is the Extended Clip Executive Decision? For people who donate at the executive producer tier on the Patreon, you will get to select the topic of an episode. We've had some stellar picks in the past, and in the pack. We've had some long movies, such as Mysteries of Lisbon, and some other 3+ chunkers, and this one is no exception. Our friend Jake selected this one, The Mother and the Whore by Jean Eustache, which is a hefty 200+ minute movie. And before we get into the movie, I just wanted to say shout out to the man Jake who did suggest this one. You are the executive producer of this episode of Extended Clip.
You're going to receive a lot of profits from, investing in this episode, you know what I mean, as an executive producer we all know it's about the turnaround. So
Yeah, you have been hired, and your first duty is to find and hire 2 more people to be executive producers.
just turn this into like a triangle or
multi-level marketing
A triangle scheme.
that's if we tried to do it, it'd be a triangle scheme, not a pyramid scheme. You know?
It would be two-dimensional. Yeah. The Mother and the Whore by Jean Eustache is the movie we're talking about today, though. 1973. This movie is something else, all right. You see Jean-Pierre Léaud, Alexandre kind of struggle between his main lover, who he lives with, Marie, and this new girl he's pursuing, Veronica. And I guess you could say one is the mother because she is more mature and the one who lets him stay at her apartment, and the other one is the whore because she admits very easily that she is easy. She admits very early on that she is easy. I guess she admits it easily too. She's very free and willing. Well, she's willing to offer up all this like very explicit sexual information about herself, especially as she gets closer to the Jean-Pierre Léaud character. But I think that's something that was very highly remarked upon about this film, is that like the sexual content, despite not having a lot of actual like sex scenes or whatever, the sexual content in this movie is incredibly explicit. It's like if Eric Romer characters were just like, you know, describing sex positions to you, essentially. It's like a very weird, like semi-detached, I would actually not even say semi. It's a very weird detached sense of sexuality where the movie is frankly about sex, you know, and lust and desire and how that entangles with love and relationships. But the movie is very detached when it comes to sex, as I said. Like the, you know, it's like frank, stark black and white, frank monologues about sexual experiences that usually are not very positive. And it's a very gripping movie because of that. All 3 performers are like just magnetic to the camera, and you could just watch them talk and go through their kind of petty faux working class, almost post-68 malaise Parisian lifestyle, where Jean-Pierre Léaud is like a journalist refusing to get a real job, basically, but can't afford anything. So he just like, you know, lives with whatever girl is allowing him to sleep with her at that point in time. And yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic in terms of the French New Wave, looking back at that 10 years later, and the effects of post-68 France or post-May 68 France, and also just a really gripping drama and very well stylized, very stark black and white, high contrast. I mean, the shots, the exteriors in Paris are almost underexposed. It feels like the night is just full of mystery and darkness and weirdness. And, you know, Léaud talks about falling in love with night people, and it's such an elusive mystery of like the city at night because it's not that classic, almost overexposed way of lighting nighttime scenes. And yeah, I really loved this movie.
No, yeah, I mean, this is a pretty impressive chunk of a movie, you know, and it's a movie I was always interested in, but again, the long runtime, you know, I'm like, I'll get around to it, and I guess that's what the executive decision is for, you know, long movies, you know, forcing us to sit out in the seat and watch the movie, but yeah, I mean, just you know, what you described, what goes on, it's this, you know, this love triangle. We got a classic love triangle going on here. But it's so steeped in realism, you know what I mean? And kind of like this dedication to, I don't know, very like long conversations that you experience kind of in real time. And, you know, and especially these characters, you know, they meander, you know, the Jean-Pierre Léaud, Alexandre especially, I mean, he's a masterclass in talking about nothing. I mean, that's about at least an hour of the movie. It's just Jean-Pierre Léaud, you know, kind of not stalling, but kind of just going down these meandering paths and conversations. And yeah, and like the kind of like, I don't know, like talking about the realism, like, I don't know, like you hear like the cars on the street in whatnot, like, you know, you hear like in terms of like audio, it just feels very, you really do experience things as the characters experience them. And, you know, it's one of those talking movies, right? Like, you know, talking is the main event in this movie. And I have to say these characters in their kind of the tortured lives that they live and kind of exploring that, it's kind of terrifying to watch in a way, but it's I don't know, that's hard to achieve, you know what I mean, and it doing that is a great accomplishment.
I also had heard of this film before, and like, I don't know, it has a big reputation, and I feel like you go into something like this, I really didn't know all that much about it or what to expect. But yeah, I'm just like stunned by the frankness of it, especially in terms of like auto critique. Like I feel I had read that like Eustache, the Leod character, is like pretty directly based on him, and like that is like such a negative portrayal of yourself, to just be like just a pompous windbag kind of talking out your ass all the time, like just sort of playing with like various women's feelings. And again, like with what you were saying, Eddie, in terms of like the frankness in which the film like talks about sex, this is a little different from just like being frank about himself. I don't know, I'm surprised. I don't know, there are a lot of movies about sex, and sexuality is, I think, a lot of what entices people to images, either pornographic or otherwise.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know, I'm just surprised there aren't more movies that like have kind of this that casual kind of conversational tone. I mean, I'm not saying that like this is necessarily how everyone talks about sex, but I don't know, it's a relatively, I don't know, plain, matter-of-fact way. It's just I was surprised in films of this era. I feel like I'm not hearing people say like cock or cunt nearly as often as they do here. And that, I don't know, just had me thinking about the way like sexuality is portrayed a lot in movies, but I feel like there are not large, weighty conversations about it that happen in this film.
You know, it's interesting, the Romer comparison. This is like the movie that, like, Romer made movies about these type of people, and like this is like, this movie kind of feels like this is what their life is actually like. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like
when they're not on vacation.
When you're not on vacation, when, you know, in the day-to-day kind of struggle of it, because Romer definitely like idealized women and whatnot, and like, you know, kind of almost there'd be kind of like a appreciating them from afar type quality in his work sometimes. And like this one, it feels so real, and it, you know, like in the way people talk to each other, it's like it's kind of ultimately, it's like, how do you like write this stuff down and perform it, right? Like there must be, is that going on? Is there some sort of...
Apparently they did not deviate from the script very much at all. Apparently it was like a word perfect type thing.
Which that's even more impressive to me, because it's kind of insane how he captures the beginning, middle, and end of a conversation and makes it feel so real, makes it feel how you would have it with a real person. Because there are a lot of like talking movies, but JT's right. They're like, I haven't seen a lot of movies that really dedicate itself to really steeping itself in the ebbs and flows of a real conversation.
Well, yeah, I think the other poll that you could compare this to on the other end of the spectrum for, you know, this era of French cinema would be someone like Jacques Rivette, who has very long, languid movies, but the performance style is almost the opposite. And they both use Leod, you know. The performance style is so different, where Jacques Rivette is, you know, invoking theater and acting itself, whereas Eustache here is like just letting things play out so long. It's almost like Frederick Wiseman or something like that. Like somewhere in between Hong Sang-soo and Frederick Wiseman, where you're just like forced to like let these things play out in such painfully long takes of people saying painfully long monologues at each other. And it's wonderful because of that. It's such a unique, novel approach to a conversational film. I also love the way that it unveils its structure. That's another way it uses the length well, is that he doesn't go home until like 20 minutes into the movie. So we start with him kind of feuding with the first side piece, if you will, that he discards or gets discarded by, and then seeing Veronica at the cafe and, you know, starting that thing and getting back with that other girl a little. And then 20 minutes later, you see him actually go home, and we see Marie who it's like, what is this? His mom or something? Is this
the mother?
like literally like. No, but this is his lover who's a bit older than him and lets him crash at her place. And I really love that. It's almost like I hate that this is what I thought of because it's such a disparate comparison, but the pilot of Mad Men where he doesn't even like get home and you don't see Betty until like the end of the episode. He's just kind of been out fucking around doing his thing the whole time, and that's like the reveal is like, oh yeah, Annie has a family.
I like how it plays with duration in that sense, especially. Like, it's just, again, I don't know, you get so absorbed in these conversations. Like, when you have, like, a reveal like that, it totally, like, snaps you into the realization, like, oh, shit, we haven't even, like, learned about these other aspects of his life. And even though it's, like, Marie's apartment, it feels like, I don't know, one of the classic male living spaces in a movie. Just him like sitting on a bed in shoes, like listening to records. Like that setup is so classic and so funny.
Yeah, it is like the lives these people lead. Like their apartments are super like messy, you know what I mean? And like it seems like, you know, with Jean-Pierre Laud, like he's living from whether he's going to live or not live, but have a place to live is, you know, dependent on, you know, if the girl he's seeing has an apartment. That's a pretty funny line. Like 2 hours in, he's like, I always make sure the girls I'm seeing have an apartment because I don't have one.
That is an all-timer pickup artist line.
Yeah. Women love helping a guy out, you know what I mean? It is just funny how, like, in terms of like it being a reflection on its life, it is like, this is like laid bare and like so negative, you know, and it's just kind of impressive to, I don't know, to have that amount of self-reflection without any sympathy, you know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like there's a lot of works where there's aspects of that, but it, you know, they kind of pull their punches, and here it's definitely some, he's really given it to himself. If what he says is true, you know, this is like his lifestyle or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's no holds bar. You think, and again, with the slow doling out of info, you know, it's like he gets home and you're like, oh, wow, he's just been cheating on this girl the whole time. And you see she's in the other room and he's calling the girl Veronica. And he's like, I'm just thinking like, man, that is flagrant. He's calling this girl for a date while his girl's in the other room. And then it's revealed that, you know, she comes in and they talk about it and everything. And it's revealed that they kind of each have their own little trysts, despite it being much more one-sided on Jean-Pierre Léaud's side of things, on, you know, his ability to be with other women compared to hers with other men. And that's when the kind of dynamic of the film is introduced as he's kind of bouncing between these relationships. And I really admire just like the lived in space that you're describing, JT, like the male living space for sure, but it's also like, you know, there's memes of like this is where every e-girl is posting from, and it's just like a pile of shit on the floor with a laptop, you know, like that's definitely this girl's lifestyle. Like she literally just gets home and plops down on the mattress that's on the floor, you know, and she has all her records. That's all you really need. She's got, you know, some King Crimson, some Deep Purple,
the oldies too. Can't forget the oldies. They love the oldies.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Well, Léaud's always spinning the real oldie stuff. I think Marie is more into the rock. Léaud never drops the needle on a rock song. He likes the Rolling Stones, but only because he likes popular music, as he explains. He only likes popular music, and the Rolling Stones are no longer popular. And we do see a copy of their, at the time, latest record, Sticky Fingers, the uncensored cover, with the penis bulging in the pants right behind Marie's head at one point, for all you classic rock fans out there. You also, the other record you see is, of course, In the Court of the Crimson King, which is a great, you know, needle drop to have in this. You know, they were listening to the good stuff. That's all I'm saying. These people had good taste. They may have, you know, done some bad things in their life, but at least they were, you know, they were probably seeing good movies. You know, they were listening to good music, probably reading good books.
Yeah, you got to distract yourself from the complete unpleasantness of your life in some other way. Because he's like, it's just wild how like He just doesn't have a job. He like talks about like going to the cafe to read, and I feel like you see him a little bit at the beginning, but clearly just to pick up women.
Yeah,
It's
and to get
so
drunk
fun.
at the
Yeah,
cafe
yeah.
too. Like he's not getting coffee; he's getting whiskey
Yeah.
at the cafe every time, which is so funny.
You know, makes a lot of references to movies and literature and all that stuff, but we don't really see him reading or watching that many movies. You know what I mean? He's kind of a, you know, he likes, it's, you know, it's funny. It's like, oh, you know, at least he listens to the good stuff, right? It's like, it's kind of like, that's the fault of this character is like, he like,
and he
so-
doesn't even like good music
Yeah,
either. Like
true.
he just likes like opera songs and shit like that, like weird old timey shit.
he's like dedicated his life to, well, obviously he's dedicated his life to womanizing, but like, you know, when you talk to him, he's dedicated his life to like, it's so funny that he's a journalist. I totally forget that he's a journalist. Like he's just some sort of like,
Because you don't see him write at all. in the
yeah,
movie.
yeah. Or like, I thought of him as just like a vague, like aspiring intellectual, I guess, you know what I mean? Who, because that's essentially what he is, and like him trying to like, have like these very weird specific views. That's what kind of stuck out to me is like through the dialogue is that this Jean-Pierre Léaud character, like Alexandre, he always, when he's talking, like he just finds like weird angles and stuff and like kind of just like, I don't know, goes off on tangents from that mind space, and like you could just tell that the other characters are like, you know, Veronica is just like completely lost sometimes. And like like I love at the beginning when they first meet, right? Or not when they first meet, like their first date or whatever, you know, Alexandre, he gets stood up, right? And then the next time, you know, they meet up and like she's like, oh, I'm sorry for like standing you up. He's like, no, it's actually good that you stood me up. Like that's actually good. And she's like, what? Like he's like, yeah. No, it's like now we have like a basis and like a beginning, and we could like there's so much of that in this movie of him coming to an opinion that you don't even exactly know where the start of this became, you know what I mean? Like how did he develop this opinion? Like we don't see the start of it where he, you know, in his younger years where he had all these opinions. It's just like he's the least agreeable guy of all time. People, especially in relationships, right? Sometimes you say something expecting a certain response in terms of comfort or something like that, and it's like it's completely alien to him, or rather that he kind of just avoids it altogether, maybe purposefully. And it feels
like a choice. It feels like he's not missing social cues. It feels more like he's making a choice to live his life as this superior intellectual type, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of, it's like that seems to be the reasoning why he has these like strange opinions, right? It's like why it's like there's no reason to think some of the things he's thinking of other than to like be original, stand out as an intellectual, which is like obviously, where does that get you? Not very far.
He has his homie with the fucked up haircut who stole a wheelchair, and he just goes over to his house. He's like, yo, you saw that SS book?
Yeah, just
there's like
strangely
looking
into
at Nazi
stuff.
just like looking at Nazi books. Like, damn, this was crazy.
Yeah.
They're not like endorsing it. They're just like, this is pretty fucked up, dude.
No, totally. I mean, it seems like the friend is a little bit more into it than maybe him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Having the books, and I like that beat where jokingly going through like the Nazi book, and like Léaud kind of flips through more, and you see some of the, you know, more unpleasant images, and you could kind of see his face shift a little bit, just being like, ah, geez, I guess that stuff was pretty bad, huh?
One thing I like about this is that Veronica is always drinking whiskey with Coke in this, and I don't know, I feel like just going back to the new wave stuff, Godard always made such a big deal about Coca-Cola. You know, he had that line, this film is the child of Marxism and Coca-Cola. Is that masculine, feminine, or La Chinoise or something like that?
I'm not sure where he drops it in a film and then it comes up throughout the rest of his filmography.
Yeah, but I feel like, you know, him saying that in the 60s, pre-68, like the fact that then this character's perspective on the film is fueled by Coca-Cola, still that Americanism influence and everything, and whiskey instead of Marxism or whatever, is a good portrait of like the despair of younger French people after the failure of 68 and everything. And it's something that you don't really see someone like Godard attempt to show dramatically. He'll show that in voiceover, or he'll tell that in voiceover, I guess. But I like the representation of that by Eustache here, this kind of disillusioned younger generation. Not too young, because they were young enough to be around, 5-10 years before this and see it, how the tides turned and everything. So yeah, I just found that very interesting.
It's kind of funny because Godard, he went out of his way to not be that guy, right? Like throughout the 70s was very politically active, made his filmmaking center around that. And yeah, this guy, Alexandre is like, yeah, he's completely like disillusioned by like politics in general, it seems like, and kind of and like I don't know, it seems like, like like a lot of people, it seemed like maybe he had idealist views or kind of like revolutionary views, and then kind of the failure of May 68 just has left him to just be, abandon all his moral scruples, so to speak, and just develop.
Well, he talks about
views.
It being like fear of violence when he actually saw the violence break out, and it like broke through his political views or something like that. And that's like a pretty weak sentiment for like a person like if they want to be something of a political journalist or something like that. But that's maybe the deepest critique of the movie beyond the womanizing and everything and like the horrific behavior. It's implied that he hit that one girl until she bled at one point, like in a past altercation. So that's got to be up there for his worst crimes. But being like this young political idealist journalist who at the sight of violence at May 68 was like, I'm scared, I'm gonna stop being into politics now. Like it's a pretty harsh auto critique of this autobiographical reading is to be believed.
Yeah, and just kind of the strange views that develop after that, because like I feel like, I mean, there's so many monologues, right? But isn't there like, there's a crazy monologue, right, where like he's basically saying he wants to go trad, right, or traditional, or like he's mad at abortionists or something like that.
He has a couple conservative monologues. One is like, I love that one where he starts off complaining about like murderers in the streets, and he's like, and by the way, if you count abortionists, that's even more murderers in the streets, and then it just goes off on a total anti-abortion thing. It's like, whoa, Jesus Christ, buddy.
I think I say the term mental maps a lot on this show. It is like, I think the movie does a great job in showing kind of like the warped mental map this guy has, and it's kind of a, it's unique. I'll give him that, and that's what he's looking for. It is unique, but it is maybe that makes it even all the more worse in a way. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, also, I feel like we see a little bit less interiority from the Marie character, but Veronica, there are elements to it. I don't think like that the film is taking necessarily like a negative tone towards the fact that she like sleeps around.
No,
but
it
just
takes pity upon her.
Pity. Like there are just some ways that she describes just like how she is getting fucked that is just so miserable. Like just like interns being like at the hospital that she works at, just being like, yeah, no, we're like trying to trick her into fucking her, and then her being like, I went along with it, like whatever.
It's harsh.
And it's like, it's not even, I feel like there's like an added just like brutality to it, because the way she's telling it is not like her like I like actively reflecting on like the trauma of those events. It's just like very, I mean, I would say like necessarily casual conversation, but it is recounted more casually to Leod, who like his mind is just somewhere else entirely, just completely not giving a fuck.
Yeah, no, I mean it is I think towards the middle of the movie, like you really do get a sense of like, both these characters have kind of like Veronique or whatever, and Alexandra, they kind of have like a sense of cruelty to them, you know what I mean, that they kind of like deliver in like very normal ways, as to like, well, what are you mad at me for? I'm just telling you how it is. And like I thought of a scene, there's a lot of dialogue scene. A scene that stands out that kind of relates to what you're talking about, JT, in terms of her recounting past experiences, is like talking about like a lover she had and being like he was so bad, like he sucked. Them bonding over that, that's a normal thing to do, but it is just given what happens before. Like I don't know, like there's like a real palpable sense of cruelty that they indulge in.
There's so many avenues that this film goes down. Like there are characters that'll just pop up for a little bit and then go away. There's this woman who I guess Jean-Pierre Léaud's Alexandra had dated a while back, and then she had been in the United States for a while, and she comes back and has this goofy giant cast over her hand, and they just like flirt for a little bit, playfully, but still just like as friends or whatever. And then an hour later she pops up in the newspaper being accused of murder. And I feel like the world existing beyond this very insular melodrama of polyamory is very funny, because we didn't really get into what ends up happening. So these affairs running concurrently end up running into each other, of course, and they experiment with just like all three spending the night together. And how do you think it goes? It's awful and weird. And, there's always one person who's very unsatisfied in any of those moments where all three of them are in a bedroom together or something like that. Especially when the two women are getting along, like even like in a non-sexual way, when they're just like chilling, like he's just getting purely humiliated because they're just ganging up on him, like basically taking the role of the audience, questioning all of his moves. But then in the end, it's like, we're both into him, so whatever, you know. And then the audience is like, well, we're watching the movie. We're watching 3.5 hours. How much can I really hate this character if I'm watching a 4 fucking hour movie about him and I don't have to do it for a podcast, Cause, and I did, I don't hate this character. I think he's a bad guy or whatever, but I love watching Jean-Pierre Léaud here just like blow smoke the whole fucking movie, metaphorically speaking. Like he actually he takes baby hits of his cigarettes the whole movie, if you've noticed that. I don't know what's up with that. That might be like fake smoking for the camera or something. Well, but anyway, he's just like such a fucking windbag in this, and it's so funny because he's one of the most charismatic and funny actors ever. Like there's a reason he's like the poster boy for not just the French New Wave, but like 70s French movies as well. Like he is a bona fide movie star, and he's very funny in this, and I just really like him at his darkest in this, just like really bringing out the darkest parts of awful French masculinity, for whether it's like supposed to be played as gripping drama for dirtbags to relate to, or provoking satire for less or more moral people to look down upon and laugh at. I think the truth is probably somewhere in between, and that's why Eustache works so well here. It's like you have to understand that kind of psyche to portray, let alone critique it. And it also reminded me of Renoir's La Chienne, which we talked about a little bit last week, and that especially Furtado's line about it when he said it was a meet cute of wretched souls. I mean, this one is also like that. It's like the post-new wave version of La Chienne, really. It's this like romantic triangle with more new ideas about romance and everything, and very much dialogue based in an art house movie that runs 3+ hours, but it kind of has the same core of that too. And I just I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, I mean, to speak to what you're saying about Léaud's presence and just like watching him and not like obviously detesting him, but there being something there. I mean, it just speaks to like, again, like that dirt bag like type of guy. It's just like, I feel like it's an archetype that still exists in people. Like there are some people in life that do have that kind of like effortlessly charming like quality of their personality. It's like, I don't know, you see someone like that, like, I don't know, guys at parties or other types of, where it's just like, why is this person with them? Yeah. And obviously there's like a magnetic quality that like he's able to draw women in with. And I think that like, I know casting Léaud like as the dude to do this like just makes perfect sense, because like even though like, I don't know, he's just blowing smoke, has that like ridiculous sort of like scarf tie
I
dangling
hate
down.
that so fucking much, man. I hate that foo-foo pirate shit so much.
The kind of like his scruffy, he's always wearing like some nice clothes, but he kind of looks scruffy, that type of style.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying his like layering game is bad or anything. I just hate the fucking ruffled pirate
Oh no,
fake,
that is like
fake tie
like scarf
thing.
tie
Scarf,
combo
yeah.
is like disgusting.
It's
and like
horrifying.
And then his buddy pulls up is
Oh my
wearing
God.
the exact same thing.
His buddy's got like the a haircut that's a mix of the Devil Probably and Brian Eno in the 70s.
It is. I think speaking of the characters, it's like, obviously if you're to make a movie where the whole point it's like this character is bad, it's like that's not really worth 3.5 hours doing, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because, to be honest, I don't find the characters likable, even the sympathetic characters in a sense, right? It's that these people are, at least with Alexandra and Marie too, but it like the focus is on the focus on Alexandra and Veronica is much more intense in that these people are creating miserable lives for themselves, that they're dooming themselves due to their tendencies, and kind of like the last moments of the movie, or not the very last, but like the last stretch of the movie, I feel like you really realize that. I made that joke at the beginning, like 2 chicks at the same time, that's every guy's dream, right? And then it's like, when we see that go down, they're not, there's no threesome, but like they're in the bed just sleeping together, or and like Leo's just like, he seems like less unhappy than he's ever been throughout the entire movie, mainly because they're calling him out on his BS, and he definitely gets humbled towards the back end of the movie by Veronica or Veronique or whatever. But it's just like kind of that palpable sense of like these people are creating miserable lives for themselves is kind of more than anything, rather than like, I hate this, Jean-Pierre Lode character, because I feel like that would be a big barrier, right, for someone to watch this movie. It's just like, I don't want to watch a 3.5 hour movie about like some faux intellectual who goes off on annoying monologues that you have to experience in real time as if you were there with them. You know what I mean? I could see a lot of people being like, I don't want to spend my time doing that. It's like, but I think kind of the journey, what does it say? Half of the vacation is the travel, right? Or something like that.
Yeah. You know what? I think you've gotten that wrong before, but this version's even better.
Yeah,
Half of the vacation is the travel, baby.
Half the joy is getting there,
Yeah.
I
I don't know, dude. I prefer half the vacations to travel.
well,
I like what
I
I like what you're saying about like condemning themselves to like misery, because I don't think like, I don't know, obviously that polyamorous like open lifestyle, I don't think the film is an outright like condemnation of that. I know
I think it is, dude. The first night they try it, one of them tries to kill themselves.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying that like they're like from the beginning, their openness to their relationship. Like I'm saying that like it's something that it has potential to, like there are couples where that type of thing works. I just think that like because of their petty vindictiveness, it's like inherently doomed. Like I don't think like, I think the film is too complicated to be like outright like this is like it's not like dogmatic in the sense where it's just like this is or like prescriptive in that sense.
No,
But
I agree
think
with
that.
you,
like they're just the way they are, because like even like before they like join together, like I'm just saying like the openness to their relationship, like
it's
they're,
more
like,
about characters than like opinions on actual like relationship stuff in real life. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think that's just like they're just so doomed there. Like why would you go through with that? Like if like Marie, like there are so many conversations where Leode and her are just like going back and forth where it's like, oh no, I love when you're like pissed off and jealous about it. And that's like, if you're in that type of thing and want that to remotely work, you should be talking about that kind of thing. But they just so like, I don't know, the love-hate is just so insane.
Or even like with Veronique, the character, like the monologue she gives at the end, right? You know what I mean? Like obviously like the movie kind of gives her a little bit of like high ground to kind of judge Alexandra from, but it's like you know, it's like the movie's not condemning like sleeping around with a bunch of men. It's like the mentality they have while doing it. It's not about what you do, it's about why you do it, right? You know, and Veronique, you know, she's like miserable at the end, saying like she doesn't even quite, you know why she does all of this, even though she gave multiple monologues explaining why she did, you know, lives that way. You know what I mean? So it is, I think the characters, or the movie, does a great job at like, I don't know, like people, you know, think they're living a certain way or doing a certain thing, but they're actually kind of like just making excuses for themselves and like enabling their own bad behavior and just not, you know, actually making improvements to improve their life. And you really feel it at the end there. You know, I think the movie leaves you in a pretty dark place.
It absolutely does. And yeah, I agree. Like, yeah. I got defensive saying it's not the movie is anti polyamory. It's against their relationships because of the characters, of course. As you said.
Yeah. Against their polyamory.
Because it's like, yeah, exactly. Like, that's what you get out of a almost 4-hour character drama, is you're not going to get stand-ins for grand statements like altogether. There's going to be a lot of that, like I said, like the stuff about post 68 France and everything like that. But I feel like this is so much more about character specificity than anything, and the performances and the dialogue do such a good job at honing in on that specificity. And I just I can't say enough about this movie, so I will stop and give it 4.5 bullets. A very strong outing from Jean Eustache. This goes alongside La Belle Noiseuse as a certain type of movie. Now, this is a certain genre of art house movie where it's like purposefully unerotic, like it's a detached sense of eroticism, but like the fact that the people who are rolling out to it are usually like kind of sexless movie nerds. They're like, oh, dude, that movie was like hot.
Yeah, definitely a lot of jerkables in this movie, right?
Yeah.
The re-jerkables.
Mr. Skin, the mother and the whore.
I watched this movie on Rumble, which I thought was pretty funny.
What is Rumble?
It's a free speech video network that Dave Rubin, conservative figurehead, started up. And I was just looking because we got a download link to this film, but like the VPN, or I needed a VPN.
Yeah, the whole mega situation. Yeah,
I didn't want to figure it out, and so I knew Rare Film. Shout out Rare Film. They have a lot of stuff, and I couldn't the download link was gone, but there was a streaming link for Rumble, and I guess maybe Rumble's, you know, they're not as tight on copyright and shit like that. So it was just funny. Right after I watched The Mother and the Whore, like I let the credits roll. I like went to the bathroom, and like I came back. It's like a huge Dave Rubin conservative podcast. It's just on my TV screen. So not really related to the movie.
Oh my
like,
God, that's so awesome!
Shout out to Rumble, the free speech network. Maybe a future sponsor of the podcast. Maybe that's what
I would love to get into that.
We'll be hosting extended clip exclusively. Who knows? We'll get a Rogan deal or something like that. But yeah, watched. You know, people. I feel like I was a Tubi pioneer. You know, I'm not going to claim credit there, but, you know, people making, you know, like, oh, the best movies are on Tubi. Maybe the best movies are on Rumble. I don't know.
Rumble. That is just ridiculous. But it might be great. Hey, that might be a future sponsor. So Rumble, shout out. Shout out to Rumble. We love our free speeches. If there were true free speech, people wouldn't get so mad at me. Malcolm, final thoughts and a rating on this one?
Yeah, 4.5 bullets. I need to check out more of this John Eustache, John Mustache, as I like to call him in America, John Mustache. And because this was a very
Mustache John. Who are you talking about? John Waters?
Yeah. I like the specific task that this movie accomplishes is it's not, you know, it's not a task that I feel like a lot of people or filmmakers would be willing to endure. Like you telling me that like it's all heavily scripted too. I'm even kind of more impressed by it just because it really captures like a sense of realism, like in conversation, like conversationally. And I think it's not just, I don't know, people hearing this who haven't seen it is like, well, what's kind of like, what's the purpose of this exercise of like 3.5 hours of, just to realize that this guy's shitty. It's like, I could tell he was shitty from 5 minutes of watching it, but I think like the way it comes to its conclusions is just in a real complex way that's, but that feels simple because it feels realistic. So yeah, I was just really impressed by it. And I felt like, we got to talk runtime. I felt like it moved super quickly for a 3.5 hour movie. And like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the best like conversation based movies, they do go by quickly because you are actually engrossed in their conversation for one reason or another. And
It's like a podcast, baby.
yeah, exactly. And I don't think this is it's like the ultimate podcast with visual flourish and hot people and stuff like that.
That's the thing. People complain about long movies. Joe Rogan episodes are like fucking 3 hours.
Yeah,
and as I've said, after 45 minutes, he's literally just going da 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 da.
Yeah, the shot reverse shot that happens in some conversations is basically you're just watching Rogan. That's just if you want to frame it that way.
True. I mean, this
Rogan,
is
and then like it cuts to a red drapery, just cutting to that dark red underlit drapery with nobody in front of it in 45 seconds, and then back to Rogan just being like duh duh duh, and then you get an ad break. I've learned a little bit about monetization on YouTube, and they know what they're doing there. Anyway,
better lighting than the Rogan studio can make people look a bit garish. It is
if they could get like the high contrast black and white in some Rogan episodes, maybe I'd tune in.
I miss the
That's what we're
the
gonna
new
do.
studio looks awful. It's too like I miss the drapes, kind of the Twin Peaks-ish type vibe. It's it looks bad. It looks bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
Now he looks like he's ripping off my studio. Yeah. We should get some drapes in here to emulate the old school.
American flag.
Go Black Lodge / Joe Rogan mode.
That's kind of the balance of this podcast we've been trying to get forever, right? So
Yeah, we should make an alt logo where Chris Kyle is swapped out with Joe Rogan.
yeah, should we get a new three? The new
And
three
then,
wise men of the podcast: Rogan, Lynch, and we need a third one there.
I don't even want to think about it. I don't like this idea. And I really hope none of our Photoshop savvy listeners do anything about it. JT, or Malcolm, did you give a rating on it?
I did.
You said 4.5.
Bullets,
Okay,
4.5.
I'm going 4.5 bullets as well. I mean, I like Malcolm going back to saying like, well, why are you going to watch 3.5 hours about like shitty people when you know right from the beginning? And I mean, I feel like, at least in my mind, that is like some of my favorite type of art is about like people that are incredibly unpleasant. I'm certain like the two of you, just the people that are generally attuned to the podcast, you want to watch people do bad things. And also just like in something as like rich as this, you get to explore that psychology to like, I don't know, just various ends, like with what you were saying, Eddie, about like 68 and just sort of understanding the process of how Leod's character has sort of veered away from being more actively political. I think, Malcolm, you had mentioned just sort of the like way people sort of lie to themselves and convince them to like go about that their patterns of behavior are okay. Like all of that is like totally on display here, and it's just, I know, compelling to watch that and sort of unlock these characters. And I don't know, it's just legitimately like moving at points, even though it does have that sort of level of like cold remove, like the titular whore monologue that happens is just, I don't know, powerful. And also, again, I feel like it's talking about like, especially when you're tackling something with this that is very much so in the women's lib, like sexuality vein, I think you have the potential to veer into misogyny there, but it does like leave this room to breathe where like, obviously, I don't know, I feel like if you think that, like, it's ludicrous because it's just obviously like the sexuality is not the problem. It's the way these characters are doing it, and just, I don't know, the vindictive, petty way they treat each other and just sort of approach life.
Very well said.
That's the-
We'll be right back on Extended Clip. Oh, Malcolm,
Well, I was
sorry.
going to say that's the quote of the episode. It's not about what you do; it's about why you do it. You know, that's the moral. That's the moral I got from this movie. Quote of the episode.
Thank you. We'll be right back on Extended Clip.
Lawrence, what would you do if you had $1 million?
I'll tell you what I'd do, man. 2 chicks at the same time, man.
No, it is funny just like watching the movie and then just immediately doing the podcast. I was like, damn, that kind of bummed me out. That definitely, kind of put me in a mood.
Yeah, no, it was like the first thing that I did this morning. Like I woke up at like 6 a.m. because I had plans with my buddy Tim to like I don't know, we're doing like test shoot stuff for a short we're making.
Nice.
And like getting like costume bullshit for it. So I was like, okay, like he's coming over at like noon. Like I should like just like do this like first thing in the morning, and like just like when Scooter like woke me up at like 6ish, like just like threw on a pot of coffee and was just like just sitting in bed watching this. And it's quite a bummer way to start out the day.
That's cool that you're like you're developing with your short. Like it's going on to the next stage. It sounds like where you're really getting the gear and whatnot.
It's just some bullshit like stoner comedy like broad thing that like by design we want to do something that we can just film quickly like on like iPhones or whatever. But it's the first time I feel like I've taken a script to actually storyboarding and like talking to people, like casting like people in something in so long. So I don't know. I'm glad it's going forward.
No, I'm actually meeting up with David, who Eddie mentioned earlier with the Jack Black stuff. Like,
oh yeah, I know David.
Yeah, David. You know, he lives in Los Angeles. I don't know. I always, it's hard for me to keep track of everyone's knowledge of people.
Of course. Well, David has been on the podcast before.
True. I feel like one of those times
one of those times I wasn't there, but he's been on like twice at least.
Yeah.
And he was a super producer producer or intern.
Yeah, I
when
forgot.
He was living with Eddie. He was our Jamie. For a little bit.
He also sat in and listened in on podcasts. I forgot. He has witnessed a lot of clip.
Bared witness.
But yeah, it's just me and him. We're just trying to make a short this year, and we're gonna meet up, try to develop it, just because it is like it's a use it or lose it type mentality. You know what I mean? It's
Fuck yeah, dude.
Hell
it's
yeah,
like
brother.
it's like if I don't do it now,
Like an
it's
aging woman's pussy.
exactly. I'm like an old hot woman who's just about to lose her attractiveness, and I need to fuck
You're
all
just
that.
You're just a woman about to turn 30.
Oh,
that's the line.
I was thinking like 60s, like when you need the rejuvenation surgery.
Kegels. You're really getting the Kegels to tighten my pussy, but
that plot line on
Kegels.
season 12 of Curb, the rejuvenation thing has been like I've just been thinking about it nonstop since I watched the episode. It's so funny.
Most people won't go there. You know, he goes the tightness.
I think Curb Your Enthusiasm has the most vagina jokes of any show of all time, probably. Like you could probably make a top 10 Curb vagina jokes list.
Oh yeah, there's the episode where Jeff Garlin is defending not having a small dick by saying she had a big pussy. It's so funny.
That's revolutionary. The fact that more people don't have that in their arsenal is like, that's something every guy should know. Like, you know what I mean? Every guy should have that comeback. Locked and loaded. Another one is, of course, the one where Larry David's referred to the young girl's rash on her pussy.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Men's humor, it's very dick based. You know what I mean? It's like Larry's.
What I'm saying is, I feel like it's almost more vagina based than any show ever.
Absolutely, yeah.
Kind of forward thinking in a way.
Very forward. Oh yeah, pussy power for sure. Larry's wearing the hat.
I would love to see Larry, and I would love a pussy hat subplot. I could see that in Curb.
I had another one on the tip of my tongue, but you know what? Well, I don't want that on the tip of my tongue, so I'm not going to talk about it.
And it's pussy. That's what he doesn't want on the tip of his tongue. Got him.
Boy. We're back on Extended Clip. We're talking about the vaginal humor of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and we're also answering some emails. That's right. extendedclippodcast@gmail.com is where you can reach us with the Extended Clip Promise. Now, look, a lot of people have asked me about the Extended Clip Promise. They say, Eddie, you've said so many different things are the Extended Clip Promise. Have I broken any of them? I don't think so. They can all be the Extended Clip Promise.
They call us the most honest podcast.
A lot of promises, and we keep them.
Yeah,
but we don't like to refer to them as the promises. Everything is its own promise.
No, this is the promise of the podcast. You write it, I read it. This one comes from Laurel. It says, "Hey guys, I know you're busy boys, so I'll cut to the chase. Thank you. That's very nice. I've noticed some directors who were the best of the 60s and prior seem to not be as watched by the Gen Z letterboxed crowd. Fellini, Minnelli, Weiler, Hawks, and Berkeley are some of the key names I've noticed aren't as celebrated by younger crowds. Do you think more and more key classic era directors will slowly be phased out of the canon as the younger generation takes more control? Or am I being too cynical about the direction of what's passed on in film history? Hope you're all well and having a good one." Well, first of all, thank you for the question. I hope you are all well and having a good one too. Yeah, the name that sticks out to me there is Busby Berkeley. Nobody talks about Busby Berkeley anymore, and I feel like there were references to him in like 80s sitcoms even. You know?
All the time.
That was like a staple cultural reference for people back in
Austin
the
Powers
day.
is the Busby Berkeley style dance,
absolutely.
in the pool.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I did not watch any Busby Berkeley in film school. I had to check that out on my own.
Yeah.
The Gang's All Here was the one that.
Well, I mean, I feel like he directed less and did more like choreography there. So I mean, I don't know.
Oh yeah, he wasn't the director of that movie. He just
I think he was. He directed The Gang's All Here, but I feel like that's a rarity.
No, most of his work was just as the choreographer. Yeah, but I didn't watch any of it in film school, weirdly. But yeah, any responses to this one, guys?
Well, I think it's kind of a hard thing to gauge, right? Like the Gen Z, like I feel like Hawks is still in pretty high regard. I think it's kind of hard to chart what the Gen Z letterbox crowd is doing, because it's like I think of the Gen Z. I guess I'm Gen Z, right? The Gen Z letterboxers.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's the
Malcolm's
year cutoff
14.
there?
14.
Malcolm is 14, but what's the year cutoff there?
It's
born in like 9/11.
It's like I don't know. I've heard different variations. You know, like I've heard some people say like 27 and under right now is Zoomer. I don't know. It's kind of all.
That's weird.
It's all hogwash to me, man. It's age is just a number to me.
Oh boy.
But not in regards to laws. That's where I do take age seriously.
But I also think of the Gen Z letterboxed crowd or whatever. Like, okay, I would say if that's your definition, then most of Letterboxd is Gen Z. Then probably at this point, it's become such a popular app and young people are who use social media. So yeah. The Letterboxd crowd, I would say, does not prioritize Minnelli and William Wyler and Busby Berkeley. And obviously there are the smaller auteurist circles and stuff like that. Like, I feel like Fellini, you're still gonna, like, you go to those movies, they're all gonna have like a 4.2 average and like all the top reviews are 5-star raves and whatever. Maybe it's just like the quantity of younger critics you can't really point to that are huge Fellini heads, but, I guess. Is the only quantitative way of saying it. Because, like, still taught in film schools, still high averages on all the critical scores and all that shit. Like, it's really hard to point outside of very small insular spheres to say anything about Fellini's fall as a cultural standpoint. Because I feel like that's just still one of the touchstones of, like, you make a reference to a classic European art house filmmaker, it's going to be Fellini or Bergman, kind of.
Yeah, I just feel like in general, it's like, I don't know, a lot of, especially thinking towards the younger end, it's like, and even like other generations, like people are like ahistorical, especially when you're that age. Like I feel like you're getting into movies, like you're probably going to watch like a bunch of newer shit first. Like even older generations, I feel
I
like
was going to say it's not a Zoomer exclusive thing. I feel
Yeah.
like this is just cyclical. Like every generation, like at a certain age, like I did when I was 19, I probably was like, oh yeah, no. I mean, if Wolf of Wall Street was my favorite movie I saw this year, and everything gets better as it goes, and it's the newest cutting edge thing, it's the best movie ever, you know? Like,
Yeah,
and then you kind of grow. So it's not, a Zoomer specific thing, but yeah, so I get what you're getting at there for sure.
I think it's just how deep into it you want to go.
Yeah.
Like I think again, there are a lot of like, what's the fucking film critic that like Lex G cites a lot as like who does like
The awards ace?
Yes, the awards ace. They're like, again, I think it transcends just like generational stuff, and it's just like, what is your limit with like being into movies, like how curious you are.
Well, with this question, I feel like it implies that they're like watching other directors instead, you know, right? Which I like, they're watching Dreyer over Minnelli. Like, I don't think that's the case, right? Like, the people who are into watching older movies, whether they be young or old, they're, you know, recognizing these names. You know, maybe they don't prioritize, you know, Fellini as much as like a younger cinephile back 20 years ago would. But I feel like if you're talking about just the general Gen Z Letterboxd crowd like that, like the majority basis of Letterboxd users, they're not going back to older movies in general, right? Like that's like I don't think it's
true.
I don't think it's like, oh, they're choosing Dreyer over Fellini now. Like maybe that's just
they're choosing Greta Gerwig over Fellini.
Yeah, so it's like, they're just watching.
That's the thumbnail image. Fellini washed, Dreyer now popular with teens.
So like I the question, I feel like maybe I'm reading too much into that aspect of the question, but like I feel like the people who are going back and watching older movies, like I don't know, I think especially like Hawks, like I think they're going back and checking that out. And also I guess another aspect is that like the canon without the internet, right? Like the canon that was presented, right, was the pathway to like watching and getting into older movies, right? Like you were presented with Fellini up top because he was super popular and there's a lot of writing on him. Now, like, if you're a younger cinephile and you have access to download any movie you want, you could be like, you know, like that's not like Fellini sounds cool, but you know, I'd rather watch like The Mother and the Whore first. Like I want to get into like the super intellectual heady stuff before I get into, you know, like the quote unquote basic art house stuff. And so I think that's an aspect to it, is that you could kind of create your own path of education. And like, you could definitely, like, the canon had barriers where like not barriers, but guidelines to where like, you know, you go back and watch like a D.W. Griffith short, and then you watch some Chaplin, and you go down like, you know, a chronological path where like, I guess everything's a little bit more out of order, kind of what JT was saying, like a younger person's more ahistorical, but like instead of going from, you know, it's not a straight line, it's, you know, you could go all over the place with it now.
Yeah, no, things are definitely more accessible now, especially like just hearing like older like film professors I had like talk about like taping things on like TCM at like 3 a.m. to be able to catch like shit like that. Now, like, I mean, obviously there's still like barriers of accessibility of like knowing the right people, being on like specific like torrenting sites, but I think if you like want to do that digging, it's like easier than ever before, and so you don't have to go the conventional canon path. And
you also don't even need to get on private trackers to watch a billion times more than people used to have access to.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
The private tracker elusivity thing is like, it's really nice to be on KG and stuff, but it's kind of like this the Frasier episode I was watching where it's like, you know, they get into the exclusive spa and they're like, oh, there's a gold room? Oh, fuck, we have to be able to get in the gold room, you know? So they're trying the whole time, then they get in there. And of course, within that, there's a platinum room, you know? And so there's always going to be like more and more obscure, weird shit. But like, if a cinephile is getting into stuff now and they go beyond the curated recommendations, and or even if they use those curated recommendations of like the TCM channel on HBO Max or Criterion channel or just like the classics tab on fucking Hulu and Netflix, like, and start just like digging for stuff they might like, yeah, it's easier than it'll ever be. The basic torrent sites, you know, it's not like the Pirate Bay only has fucking the new TV shows that came out. That's like fucking, what, at this point, 20 years of torrents. Like, that's, people have been uploading even DVD rips of obscure art house shit on there forever, you know, and not advocating for criminal activities necessarily, but I guess I am. We should call this episode How to Torrent a Movie, and it's like the artwork for How to Blow Up a Pipeline. But anyway, whether you're streaming or torrenting or anything, it's just, yeah, the accessibility is just ridiculous. And I think that it just makes sense that all canonical things are going to fall off a little bit because of the accessibility to just whatever the people like. Like, you know, if you're getting into movies, you still have tastes in other things. You're not just like a baby opening your eyes to the world for the first time. If you're like trying to get it more into movies as like a teenager or a 20-year-old or whatever, like, you probably have your own taste in TV or music or visual art or anything like that. And it's like, you can just know what you would like. I don't know. I just feel like that's the main reason. That's the optimistic reason. The pessimistic reason is that nobody fucking cares about Vincent Minnelli anymore, and I'm so sad.
Well, yeah, it's just an interesting question because it's like, I feel like the question supposes it's like there are like a younger generation watching older movies, but they're not watching these ones. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, I think the names listed, I feel like were kind of a grab bag kind of thing. Like, what you proposed, like, oh, they're not watching that because they're watching Dryer. It's like, I'm sure Dryer is also a substitute in that. Was on the bubble in the name selection.
But it's like, then what are the popular older names then that are?
Yeah.
No,
I get that.
Yeah. That. You know.
I guess it's more what's curated by the streamers, probably. Like, who has series on Criterion and stuff like that, and who does HBO Max have like 30 movies by? So thankfully, it's good stuff. It's just, you know, pretty limited or whatever in terms of like, if that's the be all end all. The good thing is you can always use that as a start and then branch out. That's the best part. Like, the fact that, yeah, HBO Max has all the, like, not all, but a ton of the early Chaplin shorts and, like, a bunch of the essential French New Wave stuff and a bunch of classic Hollywood stuff. It's like, oh, that's the same app you already pay for to watch your stupid Succession. So, like, you could pay for your film education on that app, too, if you're so inclined. I am more into the stealing method, but I understand those who use the streamers. I use a Max login. I get it. I gotta watch my Curb Your Enthusiasm somehow. I'm not downloading 13 seasons.
That's just a convenience thing for most people. Like, a lot of people.
Yeah.
The idea of
Well, that's how I am
like,
with TV. I mainly torrent for movies, like, first of all, out of obscurity for a lot of stuff that's just not on streamers, but also just like for better quality or whatever. TV, if the quality oscillates a little from fucking, you know, 1080 to whatever 720, I'm not gonna throw a conniption fit.
Yeah. It's just like how they used to watch TV back in the day with the antennas falling off and the image gets more fuzzy, you know?
Yeah, to have your Uncle Billy fidgeting with the antennas.
Yeah, exactly.
Got foil wrapped around it. It's like, we're going to get the better reception this time.
That's like going from 720 to 480 when you're watching, you know, when your show's buffering.
You know, movies used to be better back then, but everything else was so much worse. Like, they didn't even have, like, good rock music until, like, the very end of the classic Hollywood system. Like, that's crazy to consider. Because, like, I watch those movies, like, nonstop, right? I'm always watching Hollywood movies from the 40s, 50s, 30s, whatever, early 60s. And, I trick myself once in a while. I'm like, man, I could just live in these movies. It's like, it sucked back then.
You had to wear a suit all the time? Like all the time?
That's my main sticking point, is that they didn't have good rock music yet. You had to go like 4 years later.
It's like, when were basketball shorts invented? I don't know if I can live in these old times. People are like, I wish I was born in another era. It's just like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of sweats and basketball shorts available at a pretty cheap price. I think we're in a...
What were they hooping in back then?
Yeah, they were in leather pants or some shit.
Cut off jeans.
Cut off jeans. Levi.
That's the one thing I would dominate in basketball, even with not being athletic. Like, at least at a high school level, just like knowledge of the game. Like those guys don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. You could at least show up at some sort of court and just show out.
I mean, think about the NBA back then in like the 50s just being like the janitors association, Think about how easy it would be to be in like D1 college ball then.
Yeah. Well, if Bob Cousy hears this, man, he's going to be pissed off. You know what I mean? I hope this doesn't end up in the hands of Cousy.
Look, me and Cousy could chop it up. I'm into the Coos.
You could talk about Minnelli and Wyler, the movies that most young people will talk about. Then. You're like, these kids don't watch as much
Bob
Wyler.
Cousy dropping fucking 18 assists and watching Some Came Running later that night.
That's fucking
See,
fire.
that's fucking lifestyle.
But you couldn't listen to any rock music.
Just had to wait 10 more years. I mean, you still had like Elvis, and you had like doo-wop and stuff, but like, come on.
What is music in like the 30s? Like before jazz, like what's like ballroom shit? Like what the fuck are they?
Well,
even
you
listening
had
to?
like popular like jazz type music, like New Orleans jazz, like Dixieland type, like Woody Allen jazz. Like that was around in the 30s. Like
Sure. When was jazz invented? I don't even know.
Like
that.
real jazz? Like that's more like what you know as jazz, more like 50s.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fake
Executive
jazz.
decision, Ken Burns jazz.
What about the Dixieland? Like I don't. I'm confused.
That's
man. I don't know.
well, it starts with ragtime, which is like marching music, and then they start swinging it a little bit, and that becomes jazz in the early part of the 20th century.
I guess war anthems were probably a bit like shit you'd sang while you were a soldier.
Well, those are a little more rigid than jazz. Jazz is kind of about swinging eighth notes.
Not in relation to jazz, but just what would be popular back then. You know what I mean?
In the 30s?
War anthems?
People listening to war.
Yeah, and or not listening, but like when soldiers sing and they march. I think that was a big source of music back then.
They had the radio back then, right? Like they had popular singers singing pop songs back then.
But
like
here we are. We
songs.
Can't name any of those songs. We don't know what they are. So maybe they were soldier.
RYM chart for the top singles of the 30s. Number 1, Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday. That's a bunch of Kanye stans getting in there doing their dirty work. Because then you go, it's like Skip James, the Cherry Ball Blues.
Skinny Legs Blues.
Oh, Robert Johnson. I know Robert Johnson at least. Glenn Miller.
I mean, my knees.
That's the thing. You get some big band swing jazz in the late 30s. So that's cool at least,
Okay.
But yeah, if you're going like vocal music of like 30 to 35 or so, this segment is sponsored by rateyourmusic.com.
Which you can also rate movies on. Kind of, they must have been pissed when Letterboxd came out.
That's true. So most of the early 30s like popular singles are going to be like blues and folk songs.
Oh, there's the Carter family, like early country stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
see, I'm
Blind Willie Johnson, Cab Calloway and his orchestra. You also have some early novelty songs too. You have like Shaving Cream by Benny Bell. I'm gonna look that up. When was that?
Man, when Shaving Cream dropped, people are going crazy.
When was okay? It's not 1975. It was like the 30s. This Malcolm, do you know this song?
No, I'm not familiar. It sounds like you guys
Oh
are.
man, yeah, 1946. Okay, yeah. Well, it's a song where the guy keeps sounding like he's about to curse, and then he says another word. You know,
that's
yeah.
still popular till this day. Like shut the front door. You know, people still like that.
Exactly.
People still like that.
Still popular.
It's a major shut the front door predecessor. You know. But yeah, so they did have novelty songs back then. I like novelty songs.
Weird Al got me into music, man.
Exactly. Other email comes from, oh my God, this one comes from Matt Farley of Moturn Media. We were just talking about Don't Let the River Beast Get Us earlier. He says, Dear Extended Clip, not enough people are talking about Summer of 42 from 1971. It's a great movie. It's the movie that Danny and his mom are watching on the TV in the great room of the hotel in The Shining. Kubrick clearly agreed with me that it is a great movie. I watch it regularly and I never grow tired of it. It has a wonderfully relaxed pace without ever being boring. It somehow manages to combine elements of teen comedies and elements of contemplative art films. Oh yeah, I love the show. Thanks for including us in your Best of 23 episode. Matt Farley, Moturn Media. Well, Matt, all you have to do is keep making good movies and you will continue to be on this list. So I looked into this movie and it looks really interesting, more so for just like the overall arc of the director, who is one of these guys who like started at the tail end of the studio era and went into New Hollywood, Robert Mulligan. His most popular movie, of course, is the To Kill a Mockingbird adaptation with Gregory Peck. But, you know, he works from, let's see, his first proper movie is in 57, Fear Strikes Out, and his last one is in 91. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, damn.
That is pretty crazy. Anyway, I want to watch Summer of 42. I can't say anything about it though because I haven't seen it. It just sounds good. It sounds good. You guys have seen that?
I have not.
It's watch listed, man. We take your opinion, seriously. So,
and I take my watch list seriously. My watch list, I deleted everything. I stopped using the watch list forever because it's always too many. It's always too many, you know? But right now I'm keeping it to stuff that I have access to, like on my hard drive, ready to watch, so I can actually use that as a guide. And right now it has like maybe 25, 30 movies. Summer 42 is on there. It's on there, so I'm watching that in the next month or so.
That's I mean, compared to, I got like 1,300 movies on the watch list, so it's like Eddie's got a VIP watch list. That's kind of
I got a VIP watch
bigger
list.
Deal to be on that watch list,
and it's private too.
Not available to the public. You can't.
Not available to the public. I do not like seeing people look. A lot of people, I've asked them about certain things about Letterboxd. They're like, "You use the activity feed like it's a real social media," and like it's embarrassing. I'm like, "Yeah, I do look at the activity feed, and I don't like when I see people adding things to their watch list. It's like, who cares? You know, make it private."
Sure, I guess. Sure.
Yeah,
JT's getting a sneak peek at my private watch list.
Oh yes, I am. I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah,
but that's a good one. I've seen it. That's a good one. I've seen it. That's a good one too.
This is JT's.
I have not seen that one.
Watched list because he's already watched everything on this list, man. Fucking putting in the double days.
Putting in the double days like he invented fucking baseball. That is going to do it for this week's. Oh no, you guys have any final thoughts on this week's extended clip, or should we wrap it up here?
We could wrap it up.
I'm good.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it. You can email us and you can support the show at Patreon. The link will be in the description. $5 a month. It's a great deal, folks. It's the best deal in town. It's $5 a month and you get an extra episode every week. And if you donate at the executive producer tier, like for this episode that our friend EP Jake did, you will get to select the topic of an episode. Look, we went 80 minutes. We went more than our contractually obligated 60, by the way, now that we got that one bad review about half episodes. Now I'm going 60 every time. I'm on the dot. I can't fucking...
Your reviews, Matt, we take them to heart.
Look,
we read the mean stuff and we get sad, you know?
Well, I just don't get it if you like the show and just are mad that you can't access certain parts of it. Why does that mean 1 star?
I think,
just tell me that you're mad.
The show has
that you're mad. If you like the show, it's not 1 star. If you listen to even one episode, 60 minutes, that's not 1 star.
It's not an honest rating. You're right.
It's not.
I think there's also, a small aspect. We've had the podcast long enough where we have some former fans. So that's a thing. That's something to look out for. The former fans.
Yeah, I used to be into extended clip, but I kind of grew up. I used to be into extended clip, and then I turned 27.
Yeah, once I stopped doing double features, I stopped giving a shit about this stuff. It's kind of got boring.
It's like
And once I got a girlfriend, it was over. Although I do salute any man who is listening to extended clip while in an apartment with their girlfriend right now, because I know there's a couple of you, and you're strong, brave men to do so.
Semper Fi.
I don't even know what the next episode is by. Oh no, one of the episodes next week will be Long Arm of the Law, getting back into our fucking classic Hong Kong action shit, joined by Eric Marsh, returning guest of the show, Mr. Marshlands himself. So that will be a fun one. Yeah. And we're also going to complete the Home and Home with Coaster Chat. Yeah, we went on Coaster Chat recently, so those boys are going to come on here in one of the next couple sessions we do. So you'll be hearing from the Coaster Chat boys soon. And the final piece of news, we did not announce it officially on the pod, but the winner of our listener poll on Twitter was Takeshi Kitano, and that will be the subject of our late February mini-series. That's right, the last few episodes of February, I'm thinking maybe 3 episodes, maybe 4, will be on Takeshi Kitano. Each episode will feature, will focus on one film, while I am surely going to be watching a lot of other stuff by him and filling in the gaps on the other segments, but, I'm not going to make the listeners do all that prerequisite work. Each episode will be focused on one movie, and we'll have a nice couple of weeks with our good friend Beat Takeshi. You guys excited for that?
Absolutely.
I've already started downloading those movies.
I gotta be honest, I tried to rig the election for Tarkovsky and it didn't even work. It's fucking pathetic. I can't believe I can't even rig an election.
Damn. Do mail-in ballots next time.
Yeah.
I made a perfect algorithm. All right, bye guys.